Okay, so welcome back. We're moving on to the selling section now, and of course, we've talked a lot about buying and a lot about pivot points and all kinds of technical analysis of the post breakout action, confirmations, violations. Went all the way back, of course, started with the trend. You remember, we talked about how we're going to start from the left side of the chart and work our way, also start from a satellite view, work down to an aerial overhead and get very microscopic. We've done a lot of that. And now we're at that far right side of the chart where we're getting into the actual selling, taking profits. We're going to give you a bunch of things to look at, just like we started in the beginning with some perspective. We're going to do the same thing with selling here right now. And what we're going to start off with is all about perspective and knowing sort of where you are and what type of technique you're going to be using, or what type of readings you're going to be looking for to gauge whether you should be selling a stock or not. So the first thing I want to talk about is what we call the base count. And I guess Dave, I guess O'Neill sort of started this whole thing with the base count, right? I don't really know of anybody who was talking about counting bases before O'Neill. Do you? Do you?
No, I think he might have even done it after I left. I left in 1998, because I don't still remember him talking about base count, or maybe it came out in some of his studies and maybe in a later book. But the base counting, in my opinion, is you just have to be very careful in counting the bases, because if you're off by, you could think this is, a stage 3 base or fifth base. And I like to go more on how far the stock has moved and how long it's been moving in terms of time. That helps me measure when I feel that we're getting kind of close to the end of the whole move.
Yeah, and I agree with Dave. Where what I like to do is I like to use a combination of everything. What I'm going to show you today is the base count. We're going to talk about time, how far the stock moved, and then we're going to use where I know I said the PE ratio didn't mean a whole lot for our buying and our analysis of stocks, but this is one area where I do also try to keep track of the PE, and I'll show you what we use the PE for. But again, the thing I want to make sure that you understand is that, and I think what Dave was starting to try to allude to a little bit, is that this is not this exact science where we're going to it's 5 bases and this criteria and you sell. We want to make sure that you understand that this is where, when we get to a certain point, this is perspective. And like I said, where are we on this mountain? So sort of knowing, how much you've come, you're not going to really be able to know where the actual top of the mountain is until afterwards. But you can know how far you've come. And with that, we can get a good idea of whether we're late in the move, or we're early in the move, or maybe it's a time where we should really start having our antennas up. And then we start looking for specific sell signals, specific things that are very important. So we'll start off. Let's just talk about what the base count is. It's simply, and as Dave was saying, if you don't know what a base is, then you could be doing this and really counting it wrong. And that's the subjectiveness of it. That we get a little concerned that we're going to put this in somebody's hands, and then they're going to start saying that, oh, it's on the 5th stage base, and it's maybe only on the 2nd stage base. So what we've noticed over the looking at, going back and look at all these big winners and stocks through their maturation cycle, from the time that they go through stage 1, go into stage 2, stage 3, the topping stage, and then stage 4, the declining stage. In the stage 2 is where we want to be, right? We've already established that. And we look for these bases and buy from these bases through pivot points and so forth, and make sure, it's confirming from the breakout. And at some point, we're looking to sell and nail those profits down. Well, knowing where you are within the stage 2 helps you determine on whether you're going to be maybe holding for a much larger move, or maybe just trading very quickly. And again, if you're in that early stage, which would generally be the first, 1, 2, 3 bases, that's the early stage. The mid stage would be that fourth base. Then you get into like the fifth, sixth base. You're generally late in the game, especially as Dave said, if you're looking at, and Dave, the average move of a leading stock is about a year and a half, right?
Yeah, and sometimes 2 years, and it's usually 100, 200, 300%. So you kind of combine a bunch of these different factors to give you an idea. Hey, we're getting a little bit closer to the end here.
Yeah, you also have to look at the quality of the base, and we're going to talk about that today too. You can see here where you have these, and this isn't a log scale here, but and you're best to use log scales when you're doing this. But you can see here within the stage 2 uptrend, here's your stage 2 uptrend. That's where we want to be involved in the stock. You've got bases that are forming, right? So this was Amgen. This is back. This is a stock that I was buying actually off of the second base right here. Once it got into a stage 2 uptrend, and actually we had a bear market here in 1990. So as the market was hitting lower lows, this stock was hitting higher lows and was up around all-time highs. Then it made a nice, real big move here. You got into your third stage base, fourth, and then your fifth. You can see how it starts to get much more erratic, and that gets into your stage 3, and then you roll over. Now you're into stage 4. So again, this would be the count as far as, in my count. This is pretty clear, actually. Some are a little bit tougher maybe to discern, but you want to have a pretty decent sized base when you make that count. So here's another one. Here's Yelp going from 2012 to 2015, a little more compressed time frame, but you can see its IPO here goes through some volatility, then gets itself into an uptrend, forms that first buyable base, now has a move, second base, third base, another move out of there. And now you see how you start to get wide. This is on a log scale, by the way. So now you can see that this is much wider than any of these other bases by far, probably 2 times. And now you're starting to whip back and forth through the longer term moving average. In this case, it's the 40-week moving average. And then finally you roll over under it and it starts turning over. And now you're in stage 4. So again, what I like to do is, when I'm coming off of a bear market and I'm coming out of that first or second base, and the way I gauge that is, when did the stock turn into a stage 2 uptrend? So if it just started turning into a stage 2 uptrend, that next base is your first base. That's how I'm gauging it. I'm gauging it when the stock turns into a stage 2 uptrend, the first base from there. So if I'm in that early stage, I may want to hold and try to go for a big move on a stock, because I might have a tiger by the tail. I might have, especially if I'm coming out of a bear market. Now, let's just say the bull market, you've had a bull market. It's been going on for a couple years, and the stock has gone up substantially, many hundreds of %. And it's been going on, again, for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And I go and I see I'm on my third base. So at that point, I go into a trading mode. And now I'm usually taking the profits, when I can get them. I might be taking the 20, 30% moves, and even less than that, maybe, if the market is a very late stage and there's a big whipsaw environment, I may be taking very small profits. It all depends on, what we can get out of the market at that time. And then when we start seeing those big wide bases, I would completely avoid this. This would be a base that I would completely avoid. And you'll get good at this over time. Noticing these characteristics. So you're really trying to discern a couple things. One, what stage base you're in, and two, to make sure you're still in stage 2 and you're not going into stage 3. A lot of people, by the time they figure out a stock, they're in that very late stage, and the base is very wide and loose and erratic, and they're in a faulty situation that comes crashing down and fails. Right here, these are your characteristics. And the reason why I point out specifically the stage 3 characteristics is because I want you to understand that when you're in stage 3, you've got to be careful not to chase those later stage bases if they have stage 3 characteristics. So if you count here 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're in your 5th stage base, you can play a 5th stage base, but look and see what characteristics. If they're showing stage 3 characteristics and it's a wide base, then you want to generally stay away from it. Now, another thing too, Dave, sometimes the later stage base you get the blow off, you get the climax at the end. So they could be very profitable and very profitable very quickly, right? But again, that would be where you'd want to sell right into it, and that would be much shorter lived, would you say?
Yeah, and that's usually a climactic move, is usually a stock that has been running for a year and a half and is up 2 or 3 times, and then all of a sudden in the last 3 weeks the stock has another run by like 30+% or more, and it's going up. Also, it's also the angle of ascent that the stock is going up. It starts going up a lot faster, or a lot quicker than it had throughout its entire move. And so it's when you get those characteristics occurring, that's when you can just sell into strength and get probably a lot closer to the top than you would be if you wait for the whole thing to start rolling over.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Where the later stage bases, sometimes you can get a chance to make that a quick money and those big moves, but again, you're in more of a trading mode because you have to sell right into that because it happens very quickly. So another thing that you can look at, and this is sort of putting it all together to get a picture, and sometimes you don't get all the elements. Like with the PE expansion, we're going to talk about PE expansion here. Sometimes you don't get the PE expansion. You don't see this, but if you happen to see where you're in a late stage base, you're getting an accelerated rate of advance, and now you take a look at the PE and you look at where it was when the move first started. When you first started in that stage 2 uptrend, you broke out of that first base, and where it is currently. If you see that PE has doubled or tripled from there and you're on a late stage base, well, that means that the stock is outpacing the earnings. So it's starting to run up a lot faster than the earnings. And this happens sometimes where the stock doesn't even top forever. It's not like it's a major top, but it could even stall the stock out. This happened with Home Depot in the 90s, where the stock just stalled out for a number of years until the earnings catch up because the price has gotten ahead of it. It's gotten too popular and the price has gotten ahead of it. You can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you head into, you're not even in your 5th base yet. You come out of the 4th and you started getting very extended here. And this is a pretty good little run here, maybe like a climax run. And now you see the PE has doubled. That's a warning sign. That's a red flag. All right. Let me show you again with lumber liquidators. This happened fairly quickly. So again, notice how you turn into the stage 2 uptrend right here. Right. So now that's when you're going to start looking at the stock. Right? Nothing before that. So here's your first base. That was that ascending base that we looked at before. Second base, third base. So you could even make a case. This is a small base here. So you can even make a case that this is 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4. I tend to, when I'm counting bases, I want to see pretty good sized bases. So again, we go from 20 times earnings to when we get up here to 50 times. So now we're like, 2.5 times, right? More than 2 times. So the stock has moved up a lot faster than the earnings. So then we're going to start looking for specific sell signals. And in this case, we're going to actually break this down later on. In this case, this was one of the stocks that we showed you earlier that had that faulty setup and then had a low volume out, high volume in, right here off the highs, right when you had that 50 times earnings. CMG, here's another one. So this really made a big move here as far as the PE is concerned. You went from 20 times earnings to 65 times earnings. So that's triple. That's running up 3 times, tripled over the earnings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're on your 5th base here, and then boom, you get the break, and you're coming off here, and that's it. That's the top. Here's that Home Depot example I was telling you about. So here you can see where the PE expanded. It went from, I don't know, what's it look like here? 25 times earnings, up to almost 70, 75 times earnings. So it basically, the PE tripled. And from there, it just went sideways. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was like 5 years where the stock just went sideways. And during that time, you see how the PE comes down now? Because earnings now are outpacing, and they're growing faster than the PE now because the stock stopped going up. So now the PE is not expanding because the earnings are coming in and the stock is staying flat. Then stock takes off again, right? It makes this big move. And now again, the PE expanded, and we're not looking at the absolute number. The number's not that important, whether it's 50, 100, it doesn't really matter. What you're looking at is, has it doubled or tripled? And from here, when it start breaking out again, you're looking at, again, 25 times earnings, almost up to, well, pretty much that 75 times earnings again. It tripled again. And sure enough, boom, that's where the stock tops.